Hearing on this particular file. May I have the names of our participants, please?
Lee Heiss, lawyer, guardian ad litem.
Ms. Sasha Thomas, counsel for the department. Is Ms. Hunter Bashar?
Kristen Smith. Okay, that didn't come through. Could you try it again, please?
Hunter Bosher, foster care worker with Catholic Charities.
Thank you. And from our attorneys representing the parents, your appearances, please.
Brian Fry for Erica Allen, who's seated next to me.
Erica Allen.
Michael McFarland, representing father.
Andrew Zick, father.
Thank you. We're also scheduled for a pregnancy planning hearing, just so everyone is aware. I look forward to your report, Ms. Heiss, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. I was able to visit with the children in person. Last time I visited dad during a visit. So this time I visited mom during a visit with the children. She's having unsupervised visits with the children in her home. Her home is very child-centered, child-focused. The children all have areas where they have their toys. It's a clean home. It's very safe for the children. I have, let me look here. I have lots of questions for the court report today, but the children, as you know, are placed with the paternal grandparents, and the visitations are successful for the most part. We have lots of notes that I want to question some folks on. The psychological evaluations came in. I think that we should continue towards reunification. It looks like mother is coming along for reunification, and it seems like we could leave this couple in this family in a custody arrangement when we are done, but everybody's progressing. The services for mom and dad are both progressing, I mean, at different paces, I feel. And the children, their needs are being met in the current placement with the current visit schedule. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Thomas.
Thank you. Ms. Basher can be sworn in, please.
All right, Deputy Ames.
Thank you. Ms. Basher, did you provide and prepare the court with a court report for today's hearing?
Correct, I did.
Okay, and in your court report, you have quite a few attachments, and so I'm just going to try to run through those real quickly. The cover page indicates that there's supportive visitation reports for Mr. Zick, a substance use program report for Mr. Zick, a drug screen update through probation for Mr. Zick, a DV program update for Mr. Zick, a therapy update for Ms. Allen, a DV update and completion for Ms. Allen, safety plan for Ms. Allen, a therapy discharge report for 2 of the children, and then family team meeting notes for Ms. Allen. Is that still accurate to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and are there any updates or modifications that need to be made to your court report, the case service plan, or those attachments?
Yes, I have a couple updates.
Okay, go ahead.
For Andy Zick, there's a few things. So on 2/29, Andy requested to have a meeting with myself and my supervisor. And so we had a meeting. It was kind of just a talk meeting. I had some paperwork he could sign, turn it into an FTM. He brought his brother as well. The meeting did not go as planned. It was super hard to communicate with Andy, and he ended up storming out essentially and not completing any paperwork or not finishing anything. We just left on a really bad note. He didn't drug screen for us. So I think the main aspect of that FTM or meeting was kind of to talk about his services. And I think it got to him a little bit and made him frustrated, and he ended up storming out. Another update I would like to do for Erica Allen. She informed me that her employment hours has changed. She is now working 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. And so this means that on her days that she has the children, she is able to pick them up from school now, and she has started that this week.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And the children are currently placed with relatives, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And they're placed together?
Correct.
And you believe that still remains the least restrictive environment to ensure their safety?
Sorry, could you repeat that again?
Do you believe that still remains the least restrictive environment to ensure their safety?
Yes, I do.
During this review period, I think you have already touched base on it, but have you had the opportunity to review the case service plan with the parents?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and you did not attach one to this week's court report, but are there any changes that have been made to it since the last hearing?
Not that I can think of.
Okay, and you believe that both parents know what is required of them based on that case service plan?
Yes,
I'm sorry, that broke up. Can you just repeat?
yes, I do believe they both know what is expected of them.
And how would you generally summarize each parent's level of compliance with and benefit from their case service plan?
Erica Allen has essentially completed and complied with everything on her case service plan. Right now, her therapy is just ongoing, and so that's continuing. It's estimated about 6 months to a year. That's what her therapist said. And for Andy Zick, right now we're kind of at a standstill. He's participating in parenting education, and I solely believe because it's supportive visitation and they're showing up to the visits. And then other than that, he's been discharged from his substance abuse course for non-compliance. His first parenting education course, he didn't make any progress in it before it was discharged to get switched to Orchards, his supportive visitation. And then domestic violence, he has attended 7 groups and owes $50. And then his program leader also reported that his participation has come to a slowed down point.
And based on both parents' level of compliance and benefit from their case service plan, in your opinion, do you believe that there has been sufficient progress to continue towards reunification?
Yes.
Okay.
And,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
sorry, I just wanted to state for Erica Allen.
Okay. What barriers today exist for reunification for Miss Allen?
Just, I would say consistency. I'd like her to keep up with her therapy and also consistency with taking her medication, which hasn't been an issue, but I would just like to see that to not become an issue.
As it relates to Dad, what would the barriers be for him?
I think the major barrier is just his participation and dedication to his services. There really hasn't been any movement at all in his services, as stated. And then also housing, I'm not able to verify his housing at all. I've tried multiple times to set up a home visit, and they've always ended up canceled and whatnot. And then he did state that he's not going to bother with getting it verified because there's nothing there for the kids, essentially. And then also I would like to see his drug screens be more consistent, as he has missed 3 recently.
And I know that you just mentioned this, but are there any other services that you've provided during this review period to help address or help alleviate some of those barriers to reunification for either parent?
Yeah, well, Andy was here on 2/29 during the meeting. He did voice his opinion on services, and so we did recommend that he would go to Lenawee CMH, the Community Mental Health, and start through them for essentially free services.
Okay. Now, what is the current parenting time arrangement for both parents?
Right now, Erica Allen is Tuesdays and Thursdays, 3:30 to 7:30 unsupervised, and then also her allotted Friday and weekends. Saturday is overnight for her right now.
Okay. And then for Dad?
Andy is Monday and Wednesday. Monday is 3:30 to 5:30, and that's his supporter visitation. And then Wednesday's about 6 to 8. That kind of fluctuates a little. And then also his allotted Fridays and weekends, and those are supervised.
Okay. Are there any concerns about Mr. Zick's parenting?
Not from my point of view, and not from what I've gotten so far from supporter visitation. One thing I know that they were working on was Andy providing and cooking dinners and meals, which I do think that there was, I think, 2 different times that he brought lunch and dinner or cooked dinner. So right now with parenting times, no concerns.
Based on I'm just going to ask because there are several attachments. Are there anything from the attachments that you would like to highlight for the court's attention?
Not particularly, no.
And overall, do you believe that the children's needs are being met?
Yeah, I do think the children's needs are being met. I did add their therapy discharge paperwork in there because I don't think I've added that in before, even though it is a little later. But it sounds like they're doing really good. Whenever I see them, they're doing absolutely great. They love seeing parents. And in my opinion, they don't seem burnt out or overwhelmed or anything. And they're great kids.
Okay. Your recommendation indicates a 45-day review to explore reunification with mom. If reunification were to take place, do you believe that the parents have a sufficient parenting plan in place to successfully co-parent or parallel parent at this time?
Yeah, that's definitely something we could discuss. Obviously, there is concerns, but it definitely would be a discussion that we would have.
Is there anything else you'd like to bring to the court's attention today?
No, thank you.
And you have to be logged off by 2 o'clock, is that correct?
That is correct. And then Kristen Smith will cover the rest.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions, Your Honor. I would move to admit the court report with the attachments.
No objections.
No objections.
No objection.
Thank you, they are received. I don't see any updates on Erica Allen's court report other than the areas of mental health and domestic violence. Is she doing also any parenting education, or have you done a home visit recently? What's happening in the other areas concerned by the case services plan for her?
All other areas of the case service plan has been completed and should have been included in the last court report as well. My last visit was not too long ago. I don't have the specific date, but yes, there was a brief home visit.
I'm just looking at my notes from the last one and I don't see anything about her parenting education. Can you help me understand what she completed on that?
Yeah, she did tranquil parenting with Sonia Howell. That has been completed. And then we didn't go forward with supportive visitation with her due to having unsupervised already.
Do you know the reason that I raised the tranquil parenting program last time was for purposes of co-parenting education. That was my understanding of what that program entailed. So you're telling me that was a parenting education program as well?
Yes, it was.
What kind of parenting education program is that?
To my knowledge, sorry, I'm just looking at this. It's a mastery parenting skills course. I don't have any more information off the top of my head.
All right, for the next court report, would you be able to provide some additional information on that program if you don't mind?
Yes, I will, definitely.
Very good, thank you. And then there were some recommendations that came out of her psychological evaluation for some, specifically a workbook, for example. Were you able to supply that or secure that for her and pass it along to her counselor or treatment provider?
Not specifically, I don't think so.
Will you be able to look into that before our next court report, please?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Cross-examination, Mr. McFarland?
I think I can be brief. Mr. Zick explained to you that his barrier, one of his barriers is income and his budget, correct?
He's never expressed having issues with his income.
Well, at least the cost of what he's been asked to do here, and that's one of the reasons why you're allowing him to go through CMH for the drug issues, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, and did he express to you that the counseling with Mr. Bailey, that some budget issues are why he's not able to pay $50? That's outstanding.
Yeah, he hasn't expressed that he cannot pay the $50. I did receive a text that he said he has his financial situation under control, and I haven't received anything otherwise.
Okay. Should he meet with you as far as going over what his financial status is?
Yes, of course, he can come and meet with me anytime.
There may be other programs that you might be able to take, alternatives that would be cheaper or no cost, such as what he's arranged with you, correct?
Yes, correct. We did try to discuss that on 2/29 before he did leave the building.
Okay. And is father and mother getting exactly the same parenting time schedule for the children?
They do not have the same parenting time schedule right now.
Total hours per week, let me ask you that.
No, due to Erica Allen's unsupervised parenting time, she does have more allotted time.
How many hours does she have per week?
During weekdays, I would say about 12.
Well, let's include the entire week, weekends too. And then I'm going to ask you to do the same for dad.
Okay, let me do some quick math here then.
Okay, Mr. McFarland, I'm aware that she's getting more parenting time than him because she's been expanded to unsupervised. So maybe we can just take that for granted and move on to your next question, considering our time constraints.
Yes.
Although I would be very open to understanding where you were going with this particular line of questioning as well.
I'll call my client, Your Honor. I think I can cover that with that. Lastly, as far as priorities, where should my client be prioritizing his time?
His priority should be completing his domestic violence, setting up a new substance abuse, allowing the worker to come to his house to verify it, or to work out another situation with his girlfriend, I believe is Lindsay. I did supply him with paperwork to approve her as a supportive person. I haven't received that back yet. And then also just continuing with his parenting education.
Thank you. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Mr. Pratt.
How you doing today, Ms. Basher?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So when the case service plan was created, what things were put in place for Erica Allen to complete?
Domestic violence education, parenting education, therapy for her mental health, and continuing with her at that point she wasn't on medication yet. Now continuing with her medication.
And is that mental health medication that you're referring to?
Yes, correct.
Has she been in compliance with that factor of her plan?
Yes, to my knowledge.
Okay. And to your knowledge, she's prescribed medication and is taking her medication as prescribed?
Yes, to my knowledge.
Okay. And did she complete a parenting course?
Yes, she did.
Okay. Did she complete a domestic violence course?
Yes, she did.
And where'd she do that at?
The domestic violence program was through Catherine Cobb, the Safe House in Lenawee.
Okay. And has she continued to get treatment for her mental health?
Yes, she's in ongoing therapy.
Okay. And how often does she go?
Weekly.
Okay. And has she been consistent in that?
Since the time has started, yes.
Okay. Have there been any compliance issues with Erica Allen since your involvement in this case?
No, there hasn't.
Have there been any concerns that you've had with Erica Allen since you've been involved with this case?
No major concerns, no.
And do you believe the kids are safe during their parenting time with Erica Allen?
Yes, I do.
And you've done home visits to her home, is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
And is her home appropriate for the kids?
Yes, it is.
It's my understanding that Erica Allen has, at the last hearing, she was given unsupervised parenting time, is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and then that's continued until today, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, have there been any issues with her, Erica Allen's unsupervised parenting time?
No, there hasn't.
Okay. And it's my understanding that Erica Allen has also been getting or started overnight parenting time with the children as well, is that right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and that's at her home?
Yes, correct.
Have there been any issues with that parenting time?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Is there anything that Erica Allen, any requests or parts of the case service plan that Erica Allen has not completed at this point?
No, there hasn't been.
Okay. And so my understanding is your only issue is you just want to see a little bit more track record at this point? Is that right?
Yes.
A little bit more time? Okay.
Your Honor, I don't mean to be rude, but Ms. Bosher does need to log off to be present for another court hearing. And Ms. Smith can take over on questioning.
I'm amenable to allowing that, but I will tell you that I have some more questions for her as well. So if we can't get what we need from Ms. Smith, we may have to reconvene at a later time so that we can have her testimony.
Understood, Your Honor.
All right. I guess at this point, we'll shift over to, unless there's anything that's changed, Ms. Bosher, as far as your obligations.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Do you know if the other court is ready for you?
I'm logging in right now. It looks, yes, they are.
All right. Okay. Did we have this obligation? Did we know this when we set this?
Ms. Bosher had asked us to review whether or speak with Don to see if it was possible to get adjournment on this. But because we have a backup worker to be able to testify, we figured to go forward today.
All right. Okay, Deputy Ames, if you could swear in Ms. Kristen Smith, please. So I guess my original question, though, Ms. Thomas, was our court hearing scheduled first, or was the other court hearing scheduled first? And because I'd like to avoid this problem in the future. And if the other court hearing was scheduled after ours, I'm less happy, relatively speaking. I'm willing to work around other courts, but preferably in the future, if there's an obligation that arises afterwards, then she would request that she not be double booked at that time. That's my questions are.
So Your Honor, ours was, she had it scheduled for 2 hearings. The other court had to reschedule based on the parents in that case being incarcerated. And so that was the only time that both of the facilities in the court were able to accommodate that particular case. And so she did email and ask if there was a way to adjourn this one. And we had said, with the tight schedule that we have in here as it is, if we had backup, that would probably be the best.
All right, thank you for the explanation, I appreciate it. Yeah. All right, cross-examination of Ms. Smith, who has stepped in for Ms. Bosher.
Okay, yeah. This is a unique experience, your Honor.
For both of us. For all of us, I think.
I'm happy to take to lay foundation for Ms. Smith about her familiarity with the case. She was part of the case early on. So I can do that if everyone would be happier with that.
Any objections?
Might make sense for the record.
Makes sense to me too, Your Honor.
Me as well.
Nice. All right, go ahead, Ms. Thomas.
Thank you. Ms. Smith, can you just please briefly explain how you are familiar with this case?
Sure. So I was the assigned worker when the children were removed. Ms. Bosher was hired to our agency, and this case was essentially the first case that she was assigned. I worked closely with her in the beginning until I was, I believe it was early November that the case was officially transferred to Hunter. But since then, I have still worked closely with her as a mentor. She has come to me for questions, referrals for both parents. I've been a part of our weekly supervision with our supervisor. So I'm aware of what services the parents, have been participating in and where their compliance is at. The only thing that I personally have not been doing is the foster care home visits and really the case management.
And you knew that you were going to you were going to provide coverage for Hunter in this case today?
Correct.
Okay, and did you do anything to prepare for that coverage?
Yes, Hunter and we met with my supervisor for supervision to review the case. I was provided a copy of the court report and then took my own notes kind of where each parent was at to be able to give recommendations or information to the court.
Okay. And were you able to review like the internal file through like MySACWIS or anything like that?
Yes, I'm still assigned actually as secondary on all of Hunter's cases.
Okay, thank you so much for that information. I have no
You're
further
welcome.
questions, John.
All right. Well, we started with Mr. McFarland's cross-examination last time. Would you like to begin?
I can just briefly, Your Honor. Is it your understanding that they're seeking placement with mother at our next hearing?
Yes.
Okay. So father really wouldn't need to then look for it looks as though we're very close for the children being reunified with mother, at least at this point, right?
Correct.
So as far as father's housing, my understanding that where he's living with his girlfriend, that housing has been deemed appropriate, correct?
He's not living with his girlfriend, or at least that was not my understanding. He has his own housing, which is a studio apartment that Ms. Bosher has had numerous appointments to assess the home. But as she stated earlier, that those were canceled or rescheduled. But
well, let me take maybe a different path here. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, apparently my client does not think his apartment is big enough for all the kids in parenting time. I understand that. So would his girlfriend's place that's been pre-approved, would that be an acceptable place for him to have visits if there's a supervisor that's adequate for him to visit with the kids there?
I'm not sure that his girlfriend's house has actually been approved. I know that at a previous hearing, I think that there was an issue with him. I think there's a no contact order between him and one of her kids, if I'm not mistaken. And I know that as Hunter provided him with some clearances for her to complete and then return, and those weren't done. So we haven't been able to assess that home or her, for that matter, to see if it would be appropriate.
Okay, so all he has to do is really turn that in, and then that assessment will begin, correct?
Correct.
Okay, nothing further.
Mr. Frank?
How you doing today, Ms. Smith?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. So you heard the testimony of Ms. Bosher today, is that right?
Yes, I did.
Would you disagree with anything that she testified to?
No.
Okay. So as far as my client goes, how would you say she's progressing on her plan, case service plan?
I think that she's doing well. She's progressing through her PACE service plan. At this point, I think really it's just transitioning the kids to essentially be now living with her. That's why we're opening up to do some overnights and then weekends and get the kids kind of more prepared. That's why we're asking for the 45 days. I don't think that we necessarily need another 3 months of that. The kids have a really good relationship with mom. They're comfortable, at mom's house, as Ms. Heiss stated. The home's appropriate, activities and toys for each of the children. So at this point, I think that it's really just that transition to being back home.
So my understanding is right now, Eric Allen's getting overnights every other Saturday, and then it's non-overnight the rest of the time. Is that right?
Correct. I think based on her work schedule now, obviously with it being 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., that allows her to pick the children up from school. However, during the week with them attending school and her having to be at work by 6 a.m., I don't know if that's been explored of how they could, spend an overnight during the week, given her work schedule.
So do you know if the kids are placed with their grandparents, Karen and her husband right now? Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. And the grandparents have been more than accommodating and flexible. So I think that, between now and the next court hearing, as we progress and transition to hopefully a return home with mom, we could have an FTM or create a safety plan or something where it can accommodate mom's work schedule, whether that be mom dropping them off, to grandparents and them taking them to school, or that area is just what needs to be explored during the next 45 days.
Do you have knowledge of or understanding of that Karen has agreed that if my client did get weekday overnight parenting time, that she would transport them to school in the morning?
Yes.
Okay, so you do have knowledge that Karen would be able to do that?
Yes, that was noted.
Okay. So there is a plan put in place if my client did have weekday overnights on her days then, right?
Correct. It would, to my knowledge and what was discussed just between the workers and my supervisor, was that because her visitation is, Tuesdays and Thursdays, essentially she would just keep them Tuesday through Thursday.
And if we're talking about, your recommendation is, reunification with mom in 45 days, wouldn't it make sense to start doing, more sooner with a weekday parenting time versus just a big switch in 45 days?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry, maybe there was miscommunication. That is our plan. That's what we want to do from today, moving forward the next 45 days, is we want to expand that to transition them. That way, when they are returned home, it isn't going from, a day or two to now you're back full time.
Okay. So you're supportive of Erica getting more overnights after today then?
Correct.
Okay. And that could include weekday time as well?
Yes.
Okay. Nothing further.
Ms. Heiss?
Ms. Smith, at what point is FRP services available to mother?
FRP services are available to her they have to be in the home, I think, within 30 days of return home. So,
okay.
And I have seen emails daily that there are several openings, which is really good because in the past that has not been the case. So when we're planning on returning home, that referral would be made and FRP services would be in place almost immediately. It looks like.
Okay. And then once the children start transitioning towards being reunified with mother, the visits with father, would they continue, at least at this point, to be at paternal grandma and grandpa's house?
While the case remain open, yes. I don't think that the agency is necessarily opposed to, a community visitor. Essentially, we just need somewhere that dad can visit, since at this point in time, the housing is, not been verified yet.
Okay. Something in the foster care supportive visitation notes indicated to me that dad is employed at the placement home. Is that right? He does some construction work for the placement?
To my knowledge, he was just self-employed. He's a contractor. He's self-employed.
Yeah, and he's doing work at the placement, specifically some remodeling?
I did not. I'm sorry. I didn't read every foster
Yeah.
care supportive
Okay.
visitation note. So I'm not sure on that.
Okay, if that is the case, will you be sure to check, he's probably there when the kids aren't, is what I'm wondering. Also, what I'm wondering is if dad isn't aiming for independent visits, should we build him a plan where the Lindsay person you talked about maybe she could be vetted to support him in his visits?
Yes, as long as we get, like I said, those clearances back to have her approved as a supportive visitation, an approved support person.
Has he verified his income to you? You say self-employed, but has he been verifying income?
When I first received the case, he provided me with his last year's tax returns. But that would have been that's the only verification of employment we've received. We haven't received, anything on a monthly basis. It was tax returns and then essentially a large stack of receipts and invoices to Lowe's, Home Depot, different jobs that he had completed.
Okay.
So, we haven't received
regarding dad's
updated.
missed drug screens. I'm wondering talk to me about the screening that he's missing. Is it at LDC or is it with you?
So initially when I was assigned this case, we had him set up with forensic fluids, and then a screening location was our office. Based on the hours that our office was available to screen him, did not accommodate his work schedule. So at that point, when I learned that he was also on probation, I always like to just essentially combine services and not make parents do two things if it's, not needed. So at that point I said, okay, you can just screen through probation. He signed a release. I was able to obtain all of his probation screens. Unfortunately, through probation, they do require parents to pay. But he was able to screen on different hours, and that was more accommodating to him. I do know that he was assigned a new probation officer recently. And there was a gap in screens. He did not screen since, I believe, early January. And then he had missed screens on January 18th, the 30th, and also on February 5th. I believe that he voiced to Hunter, same thing. His services are costing him money. And I believe that she reminded him again, he could screen through forensic fluids. We can drug screen him, but obviously our hours are not as flexible as probation. So I'm not sure of his last drug screen. I believe
Go ahead.
I believe, to my knowledge, he missed a drug screen in 2-5. I don't know if we've received anything from his probation officer since.
Okay. You were at the meeting. Were you at the meeting on February 29th that got heated?
I was in the office. I overheard the meeting, but no, I was not directly a part of the meeting.
Okay. Did you observe dad's behavior?
Yes.
Did you observe the caseworker to ask for a drug screen?
I don't believe she even got to asking him for a drug screen. I think that she had the I think his parent agency treatment plan or something to, I know she needed something for him to sign, but because he had requested the meeting, I think she was just trying to kill two birds with one stone, and the meeting got essentially heated and then he left.
Okay. You are aware that he has the psychological evaluation assessed a high probability of substance use disorder, and we're prioritizing that for his case service plan?
Correct. And just to kind of touch on that, because I did want to go back to it. In addition to the drug screening and that cost, when I received this case, again, I don't want to make parents do double services. So when I had learned that he was already on probation, and as part of his probation, he was required to complete a substance abuse assessment, we used that one from Insight Counseling. So it was that substance abuse assessment that recommended the 52-week program. Essentially, I don't know if Mr. Zick disagreed with those recommendations or what happened, but he was discontinued or discharged from that program. So, I mean, essentially he could start back at CMH and get a new screening, a new substance abuse assessment, and complete those recommendations. But we were going off of the recommendations that were already made and assessments that were already completed, trying to save him a little bit of time.
During the last review period, didn't we have like dad did 2 days and then mom did 2 days and another parent had the right to have access to the kids on the weekend?
Yeah, I believe that they were rotating weekends. Those were
Do
still
you have information about whether dad participated in things with the kids on that his weekends?
As far as I know, he did. Yeah.
Do his parents give you a report if he came to the wrestling meet, if he went to the gymnastics class, if he fed the kids on those weekends? Are we getting reports?
Yes, the grandmother texts Hunter and gives her updates on what time they were there, what they did.
Okay. Thank you. Nothing further.
Okay, do we know whether or not Ms. Erica Allen is in compliance with her probation requirements?
I believe that she was, when I held the case, I believe she was essentially on like non-reporting. It was as long as she, I don't want to say kept her nose clean, but as long as nothing came up, I believe she was non-reporting. That would be something that we would have to ask Erica.
Well, are you, or I should say as Ms. Osher, independently tracking? It sounds like there's some contact with Mr. Zick's probation officer, but I'm not hearing about any updates as far as whether or not Ms. Allen's probation officer is in contact or what the status is on that.
I had contact with her probation officer early on in the case, and she was in compliance and I believe only owed some fines. I could get the specifics. I know that I emailed. I'm not sure if that maybe was noted in a court report back in October, before I transferred the case. But I could get that. I could get that.
I'd like, just for the next reporting period, I'd like to know if she, was in full compliance with her probation, as well as obviously Mr. Zick in full compliance with his probation terms at the next report period, if you don't mind.
Yes. And actually, I'm at my desk right now, and I honestly just pulled up my email. Would you mind if I just read that now? My email so her probation officer is Erica Williams. It looks like Erica Allen signed a release. And I contacted her probation officer back on October 2nd. She stated that she is currently under probation under a delayed status for larceny less than 200. She is to report once a month and that she owes a total of $630 in fines, costs, institution.
Okay, just, an update on that, Be great.
Okay, and she also stated that she was ordered for 6 months of probation. So honestly, I don't even know if Miss Allen is even on probation at this point.
Oh, can we check on that, please?
Yes, I will follow up with that.
Appreciate it. There were some recommendations in the CTAC evaluation too, for the children. I see that the 2 older children were discharged from counseling. And forgive me, maybe you've already, or Ms. Boscher's already answered this question, but was the CTAC evaluation for the children delivered to those practitioners, and were those recommendations followed? For example, for AZ Junior, it was he needed to be tested for ADHD. There was a specific parenting education curriculum and some other things on occupational therapy evaluation. Do we know if those things were passed along to his provider and whether or not they were followed up on?
To my knowledge, when I made the referrals for the therapy, yes, the CTAC would have been passed along to the therapist. I'm not sure. To my knowledge, I don't believe that he was diagnosed with ADHD.
Well, this simply says that he should have been evaluated for it.
I'm not
So
aware. I'm not aware if that was completed, or if that would have been completed maybe with his primary care doctor. So I will also have to see if that appointment took place.
All right, thank you. I mean, I have some of the same questions as it relates to the CTAC with regard to the second child. There were some pretty significant indications of some perfectionism, and some of the same recommendations also that came through for the first one as far as parenting specifically. But so if you could check to see if the CTAC recommendations were followed up on for all 3, I would appreciate it. Because the third one is the youngest child was supposed to be evaluated for early on services, and I don't have any indication as to whether or not that was completed or not.
I do know, because I spoke with a relative, and I know that early on had contacted the relative. They did, I don't want to necessarily call it a screening, but I mean, she was meeting all of her developmental milestones. So at that time, they didn't think that early on was needed in the home.
Okay, that's fine. I'm looking at my notes, and those recommendations came out back in July, and they were not, I don't really have any updates other than the older 2 were in therapy as of our last review, but there was no indication that the youngest child had been screened. So if we could maybe just put some of that either in the next report or include some of those notes, that would be, I'd appreciate that.
Absolutely.
All right. Questions based on my questions or redirect Ms. Thomas?
I have none, Your Honor, thank you.
Mr. McFarland?
Very briefly, my client would like to know if his parents could be explored as a suitable residence for him. Is that something that you could pass on to the worker to do?
Yes.
Okay. No further questions.
Mr. Fry?
No questions.
Ms. Heiss?
Ms. Smith, do you know the custody status for this family? I know that the custody would be suspended while the abuse and neglect case is on, but where is the family as far as custody is concerned? Do you know?
I do not.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Okay, thank you for your testimony. I'll attach a little summary of all of my questions specifically, and I obviously am open to any of the other issues that our attorneys may want to have a look at for purposes of our next review hearing, because I know there were some things that I asked Ms. Boscher for and some things that I asked you for, so I'll try to consolidate those. And so you can look for that in the attachment that comes out.
Okay, thank you.
Any other witnesses, Ms. Thomas?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. McFarland?
My client would like to take the stand, Your Honor.
Very good, come on up.
How would you like me to address you today?
Andy's fine.
Andy, you'd be willing to take a drug test today, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you realize that policy, the presumption, let me say, is that if you miss a drug test, the presumption is you're probably positive, and that's why you're missing. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
Right now, you have arrangements for drug testing through CMH, is that correct?
No, right now I'm on probation, color system. I've reported to probation. I just had to report the fourth Wednesday of this month, and, they're willing. I ran into the first between court dates. I was spot on everything with my services and everything, fell behind on truck payments and rent. Unfortunately, this time.
I'm going to get back to that. Okay, so let me just stick to that one subject I got you right here. So right now you're currently testing through colors, correct?
Yes, sir.
Have you tested for anything other than the marijuana, which you have a medicinal card for?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, as far as your budget, I think you brought one here today.
Yes, it's got a little more steady over the last 6 weeks. As you heard, yes, I've been doing some work at,
Well, your rent's about $500 a month, or $550 a month, right?
Mhm.
Is that yes?
Yes, sir.
Your internet's about 100, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the internet's DTE is about 70, and your phone is about 100. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. The $550 rent includes my, my consumers, because I'm left with a $600 bill that I can't get a consumers, in my name right now. It was left from somebody else at the trailer. I got a consumer's bill in my name.
And then your income looks like it's fluctuated from about 300 to 850 every couple of weeks. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So what's your income like right now?
Well, with this week's court, I mean, I'm averaging about, $20 to $25 an hour, depending on how many hours a week I can work. Obviously today's court and stuff. So, I have went to, worked with a gentleman in Ann Arbor a couple days. I do get calls. I've been down to Detroit a few days, here and there for people that I've done previous work for. So, being self-employed, like they say, I mean, it's up and down, it fluctuates. That's why, I have not filed taxes yet for this year. So, as soon as I do so, I'll be more than welcome to, provide them documentations.
My understanding is that you're going to return the information about your girlfriend so she can be explored for being a supervisor, correct?
Yes, sir. Hunter and another worker has been out to her, address. Her house has been approved for, the kids to be there. My mom has been over there with the kids, because she is the supervisor. I mean, with how things were progressing, I was figuring we was on it, after with the last, 3 months, I was figuring we was gonna be on town supervised. It sounded like it took a while for that, paperwork to go through, as it did for my brother, for all the background checks and stuff. So I slacked on getting it returned. I'll be more than happy to bring it in tomorrow. I'll bring it from the house, and tomorrow morning when I come, I'll be more than happy to drop it off to
And
Hunter.
is it correct that I expressed your intention correctly that you'd like at least a possibility explored of you living with your folks and them being supervisors, correct?
Yes, yep. Right now, the parenting time schedule, works good with me with the, time I'm allowed to be at my girlfriend's house. So, as far as for unsupervised visits or, even overnights, my schedule right now, I have a place that they can stay the night at. No, I don't need Hunter coming and approving my studio apartment because it's not going to be approved for the children. So it's not like the children are ever going to be given back to me in a studio apartment. So I didn't feel that was necessary at the time. I guess if it is necessary, she can be more than welcome to come get it approved, but it's still not going to be a suitable place where it's going to be any type of approval for any type of reunification with my children. So obviously other means has to be sought. And yes, I was living with my parents before,
And you heard the worker testify the barriers that exist for you having unsupervised parenting, correct? They testified about that today. You heard that, right?
Well, I guess I'm a little on exactly what I have to do for unsupervised visits. I guess the barriers for that, exactly, I guess. As far as the drug testing goes, I've expressed to Hunter that I would like to be put back on colors for, I just said that in our meeting on the 29th that I blew up on again. I told her that now with my schedule and with the expenses, I would like to be put back on colors through Catholic Charities. We said that in the meeting. My brother was there.
And you can afford to do that.
Well, it's free through them.
That's what I wanted to know. Okay.
Yeah. So, and then, yes, I reached out to CMH. Now, in this meeting, we sit there and they want to tell me that probation and this are two separate things. And then I have Hunter sitting there. The only time she said anything throughout my questions was she was telling me how Judge Sadler, or my judge on this, I don't know if I pronounced her name. Shadler is going to be upset with me for my attendance on my drug counseling class. Now, if my probation and this is separate, how is Hunter, my caseworker, telling me what is going to happen to me on my probation with that? Because I just reported 2 days before that meeting, and I mean, I pay my fines off. Probation's willing to not even bother with the color system. I mean, we're at the point of paying off my fines. I've almost been on probation for a year, so we're getting towards the end of that.
Did you hear what she said? Is that for economy, so you don't have to do double?
I understand.
And if you're not testing now through probation, that she wants you test something?
No, I was not testing. I never was testing through.
What was the issue? What happened with, you said there's some type of blow up at the meeting. What happened?
Well, I just went in there because as far as what I have to do, no, I looked at my care plan. There's no length.
Let me just stop you here. What we're looking at is, was your voice raised and was it necessary to raise it? Explain to us what happened.
I went in there. Obviously I asked some questions. According to my brother, and my dad can testify to this if he gets a chance to talk. The supervisor had an attitude with me already. I came in asking why the curriculum or caseload for parents is so much different here. All we talk about is completion on one side, and all we're talking about is 52 weeks and 26 weeks long on the other side, and that's my probation. I looked in my care plan, my domestic violence says nothing about any type of length. The report she got is actually, I had to be from right after. I'd like to know the date of it because it says I owe $50. Well, I emailed John on February 17th and asked him what my balance was. And on February 17th, I owed him only $30. And then with that class I took on February 17th. So up until February 17th, my balance was paid up. So that report has to be before February 17th. And if our last day in court was January 12th, I mean, there's not much time for any type of going to classes or doing anything. I mean, she waited 3 weeks to get the report for my domestic violence counseling. And then since that report, I've been there 2 out of the last 3 weeks and got the balance paid up. So, I mean,
now
my classwork and stuff workload is not nowhere near what it's been portrayed to.
Are you asking that the court consider unsupervised parenting time for you?
Yes, sir.
Is there anything here that you want to bring up? This is your opportunity that we have.
I've started after court last time. I got Aubrey reached out to me about another parenting education observation class I have to do. So I've started that. There's 4 reports in that court packet right there. There is numerous court reports in the packets of observations of me with my children and other people. There's never, ever, ever one anger issue brought up, one out of line thing I've done with my children. It's been nothing but love and caring and understanding and patience. To me, that should any class on Zoom or with a instructor. I mean, that's one thing.
So you're saying the real life observations would show there's no risk of harm with the kids?
None.
With you unsupervised, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And the current state of the kids when the day they got taken was I have 100% parenting time honored by Judge Halslaber and an ex parte ordered file. So that was the most recent before the kids were removed from the home.
And I think I've explained this to you, but you also realize that this is a plan where the children could be returned. You're not going to be living with mom, correct?
No, sir.
So it'd be returned to either you or her. You understand that's what the plan is.
I mean, I'd like return to both, but I feel it's not looking so good as of right now for some reason.
Have we covered everything that you want to cover then?
Yes, sir.
I'll see if anybody else has questions for you.
I have none.
No questions.
Ms. Heiss?
Unsupervised visits, are you proposing those to be at grandparents' house?
They could be at a hotel. I mean, I could take them to Walmart shopping to buy them a toy. I could take them to my girlfriend's house because that house has been approved by Hunter. She has been there with another worker and approved the house. So there's plenty of things I can do on that.
How do you know that your mom and the kids have been there?
How do I know that my mom and the kids have been there? Because I was there when they were there. I mean, during my visits, I've asked them to come home. I've asked my mom if she could come to the Tecumseh on my visit time, you know, with the kids.
Do you know when that happened?
I mean, I don't remember the exact day. It was a long time ago when Hunter was there getting the place approved. It was before Christmas that Hunter was out there, I believe. So, I mean, this has been going on a long time. I mean.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
All right, sorry if you already answered this question, but what's happening with your substance abuse treatment?
Yes, so probation told me to focus on John Bailey and my domestic violence. So yes, my $25 class a week kind of fell off. I reached out, I can do at CMH. I guess they have an hour-long class in the morning from 7 to 8 or at nighttime. A buddy of mine in recovery is currently working there, and there's a group there that I can take. I just found this out on Saturday. So that's what I plan on doing, because that is obviously free. And I have told Hunter at this meeting that I wanted to be back on colors for Catholic Charities. I've told her that. I mean, there's text messages of that, you know, back and forth.
Okay.
So yeah, there has been other drops since back in January, but like I said, you know, it seems like they get my reports right after the last court date, so they're missing a lot of the stuff in there.
Any questions based on my questions?
None.
No, you're on.
No. All right.
No.
Thank you for your testimony. May I return your seat?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else, Mr. McFarland?
I would like to call my client's father, if I might. Thank you, Jim, for being here in court and being interested as you are. You heard your son's request that you and your wife might be a possible place where he could live and perhaps have visits. What are your thoughts on that? I don't want to put you on the spot.
No,
Okay.
no, obviously it's been discussed.
Okay.
That this could be a possibility down the road as we go forward and the kids are starting to go back there.
Okay. So you'd be
It's,
willing.
It's not uncommon. I mean, over the last 9 years, he's lived with us. Erica spent time living with us. I mean, this has not been anything that we're not used to.
I remember that, so that's why I'm asking if that's something that
Yeah.
you would at least explore or be open to exploring again.
The financial situation for the last 9 years has always warranted that we're involved in some shape or fashion. So, yes, it's been discussed, and it's something that can be.
I'll see if anybody else has any questions for you.
I have no questions at this time. Thank you.
No questions.
It's nice.
Mr. Zick, Tim, visits are happening at your house. Your wife is supervising, is that right?
Her and I are both there. I work remotely from home now, so I'm there.
You know,
99% of the time, other than when I have to go to Illinois and spend a few days in the office. So yes, we're
you're
both there.
familiar with this Aubrey person who's been working with your son and at visits?
Yes, I believe she just left that job, and yesterday we had a new person take over. Yes.
What percentage of the time is Mr. Zick independent with the kids, with you and your wife not available?
On all of his visits, we pretty much try to just exclude ourselves from being involved with the kids and him, and put the emphasis on him to take care of their needs and when they have disagreements between themselves, work them out. And we try to stay out of it because, you know, we're supervising them the rest of the time, and it's nice to have a break.
Okay.
No more than when Erica was coming to the house, Karen would try to exclude herself and let the parents and the kids have their time together, because we already have a lot of time. So I'd say
Okay, you've been through this.
90%.
Okay, you've been through this for a long time, longer than we have. Do you
I have.
see that the progress in Erica?
Yeah, we've had no problems, during this time, with Erica. If I said I have no concerns with either parent in this situation at all, I'd be lying, because when you've got 9 years of history, there's always in the back of your mind hoping that things don't go back the way they were. But no, I have no concerns whatsoever with Erica and anything to do with these kids at this time.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing further.
Okay, any redirect?
One question, Your Honor. I'd like to ask you the same question that the referee or that the guardian ad litem asked you about mother, about your son. Do you have any concerns with his progress from what you observe?
I'm not privy with where he's at in his plan.
I'm just what you're observing.
I have no concerns, and I've said this in this court previously. I have no concerns with either parent having unsupervised or overnight visits. Parents have never demonstrated anything but care and love for these children. From the 9th of July until the end of August, I mean, the court needs to understand that Andy had these kids 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, when Erica was in Illinois, and there were no problems. And I'm very concerned about my grandkids, so I took the efforts to go out to the park where they lived and speak with his neighbor, and ask if everything was on the up and up. And every time I talked to her, her name is Barbara Hanson, she told me that everything was fine and that there were no issues. So I have no concerns with either parent having their children. It's where they should be, because they both love their children and their children love them.
Thank you for your time.
Is there anything else you wanted to share today?
No, just that, you know, Karen and I will continue to support Erica. We'll continue to support Andy and whatever the court teams do.
Thank you very much for everything you're doing to help support them.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other witnesses, Mr. McFarland?
No, thank you.
Mr. Fry?
Call my client.
All right, come on up, Ms. Allen.
So how would you describe your progress on your case service plan to this point?
I feel like I've done everything you've asked me to do.
Okay. Okay. Have you gotten benefit out of those things that you've done?
Yes, I have. I mean, I enjoy my counseling every week that I have. We talk about different things and different topics. But the parenting class that I took, I learned a lot of knowledge. They learned a lot of laws and stuff like that in Michigan, so I enjoyed learning new things. I did take an anger management class. They taught you like breathing techniques, like stretching, different things like that, different techniques you can use to get into, like if you're upset or anything like that. My domestic violence class, they taught me about red flags, the power bill, and stuff like that.
Okay. Do you plan to continue your counseling?
Yes.
Okay. And you've been getting unsupervised parenting time since the last court visit?
Yes.
Court date, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. How are those been going?
Very good. The kids love it. They love coming over, being able to play and the environment they were in before. So, and they have friends that are in the neighborhood that come over and visit also. So they enjoy it a lot.
Have there been any problems or any issues in your visits? Okay. And you've also had overnight visits, is that right?
Yes.
And have there been any problems on your overnight visits?
No, they all had fun. We had a movie night and they all fell asleep and loved it.
Okay. Now, there was some testimony about your probation, and is that in District Court in Lenawee County?
Yes.
Are you still on probation?
Tomorrow is my last check-in. All I had to do for my probation was to pay a fine, which I paid before court today, and then I will be off
So you're anticipating that will be tomorrow, might be your last day?
tomorrow. Yes.
Okay. Have you paid your fine?
Yes, today I did.
Okay. And that was under what, a delayed sentence? Is that right?
Yes.
So the charges will get dismissed?
Yes.
Okay. So you'll have completed that probation as of tomorrow, at least you
Yes.
anticipate?
Yes.
Have you had any violations on probation?
No.
Okay. What are you wanting to see for your parenting time going forward?
I would love to have all my overnights for my visits. That's what I would definitely,
What do you mean by all your overnights for your visits?
or whenever I have them on Tuesday and Thursday and every other weekend, I would like to have overnights with them.
So on your days,
On my days.
you're not looking to take any of Andy's
No.
days, right?
No,
Okay, just on your days,
just on my
the
days.
overnights,
Yes.
okay. And would you be able to supervise the kids during that time?
Yes.
Okay. Where you're working right now?
I guess Stamp in Chelsea.
Okay. And what do you do there?
I am a machine operator,
And what are your hours?
6 a.m. to 2 p.m.,
Okay. And what days of the week?
Monday through Friday.
Okay. I'm assuming the kids go to school after 6 a.m. in the morning?
Yes, they do.
Okay. How would they get to school if you had overnights during the week?
So I spoke with Karen, the grandma, and she said she would come over before I leave for work and she would bring them to school and then I would pick them up when I got off. Then they'd be getting out of school around 3.
Is that Karen Zick, where they're currently placed?
Yes.
Okay. So you've arranged that already?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else that you wanted the court to know? Okay, nothing further.
How far away do you live from the grandparents?
I think it's 20 minutes maybe.
And you have confirmed with Karen that she'd be willing to do pickup and drop off from your house for the kids? Effectively, what you're asking for is what, 3 days a week?
Tuesday and Thursdays every week, and then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Well, yeah, okay, sorry. Tuesdays and Thursdays every week, and every other Friday would be pickup at my house for the kids to go to school.
Right, so she would drive 20 minutes to your house to get the kids to school 3 days a week?
Yeah. She did it prior to all this, when we were living here. She would come to my house Monday through Friday and do the same thing.
All 5 days?
Or was it, no, I think, was it 5? It was 5 days. It was a week split or something like that. But yeah, she would come.
Are you able to pick the children up from school?
Yes, I am.
Do you know if a copy of your psychological evaluation was given over to your counselor?
I could not.
Have you read through your psychological evaluation?
Some of it, I did not read the whole thing.
All right, there are some recommendations at the end of that I'm very interested in for you.
Okay.
And very interested in your counselor for you to let us know if that could be used effectively to help support where you are.
Okay.
There's someone else I was gonna ask. How long have you been aware of the diagnosis that was done as a result of that?
It was the bipolar.
Yes.
Probably 4 years ago I was diagnosed, I think. 5 years ago.
Okay. Is this the first time you've been on any kind of medication for it?
No, I was on medication when I lived in Illinois, but it didn't seem to help the medicine they had me on. And when I got to Michigan, I started seeing a counselor and stuff like that, and he said I shouldn't get back on medication. So then I got put back on the same medication. It didn't help, so we transferred to Abilify, and that seems to help a lot more.
All right. Would you say you're invested in making sure that you have all of the supports you need, whether it's medication, counseling, or otherwise, in order to maintain your success?
Yes.
Did you have any follow-up questions?
Okay.
Cross-examination or other questions, Mr. McFarland?
No, thank you.
Ms. Thomas?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Heiss?
No, thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. You may return to your seat. Anyone else you'd like us to hear from?
Okay.
Ms. Heiss?
Your Honor, I have no witnesses. Thank you.
Comments, Ms. Thomas?
Your Honor, one of the things that kind of stood out at the beginning of this case was just, I guess, this pattern that this family has been engaged in. And I think we've heard from Grandpa a couple of times about how long this family has sort of been engaged in this sort of pattern that we saw that caused the court to take jurisdiction. And I think that that speaks to the agency's request for more time demonstrating some stability from both parents. I understand Mr. Zick's frustrations with the service plan and the overlap between probation and what is required in our NA case. So at this time, I am asking the court to consider a shortened review hearing. I think that there was some hope for a request for reunification. If the court is not willing to order that to happen within the next review period with FRP services in place, the agency, and I mean, I'm fully aware, along with the other attorneys, how to effectuate a reunification without an order right off the bat. So we can also do that if this court is not inclined to order that today. And if the court is not inclined to do an accelerated review, I don't know that there's a ton of harm in a standard 90-day review. I think that reunification, given the progress made by Ms. Allen, is continued to be appropriate at this time. And frankly, as Ms. Heiss had stated in the beginning, perhaps this is even a family that a lot of our concerns could be alleviated through a simple custody order, or even consideration of how to formally incorporate the grandparent support into their arrangement. But I think that overall, we are 6 months in, and I don't know that that's long enough to demonstrate the stability and security that these children need. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. McFarland?
Well, Your Honor, my client's concerns, I think, have been brought to the court's attention. Very thoughtful manner. It was very emotional for him. I'm not sure that I'd be able to stipulate to anything presented to me prior to some type of review. So that's my position.
Comments, Mr. Brock?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. So we've had a few reviews now, and my client has made steady progress across every single review period. She's done all that's been asked of her. She's completed every program that's been provided to her. She continues to do her counseling. Obviously, she testified that she finds that beneficial, and she's going to keep doing her counseling. She's taking her medication. She got on some new medications thanks to this court's involvement that seems to be helping her quite a bit, according to her testimony as well. So we've seen very good progress from her, steady across the whole period, this whole time period. There's been no issues of non-compliance with my client. Again, she's completed the domestic violence class. She's completed parenting class. Everything that's been put in front of her. We would ask that the court expand her parenting time to overnights, during the week as well, versus this one every 2 weeks that she's getting now. That does seem appropriate based on the testimony that we heard from my client. We heard from the workers as well today. She does have an appropriate place to live, which was one of the things at the beginning of this case that was an issue for her. Again, so she's done everything asked of her at this point. I think the goal should still be reunification. I think my client has done everything that she can to reunify with her kids. I will note that the next there is a custody hearing scheduled in this case for April 2nd. So I do think it would be appropriate to have a review either on that day or sometime after that day, just so a custody order can be put in place before this case is terminated. But again, today we would be asking for my client's overnight parenting time to be expanded as we move towards closing out this case, which at this point, from what we heard, seems like it's going to be appropriate pretty soon. Thank you.
Well, I have a couple questions for our counselors, for the parents. I see that the parenting time schedule is alternating each parent each day of the week effectively. So in order to cut down on the number of transitions, obviously the grandparents are going to have to continue to be involved, and that seems to be pretty uncontested. Would your client prefer to change? I would prefer to change the parenting time to either Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for your 2 days during the week, rather than Monday and Wednesday. Does you have a preference?
That'd be good for my client. Our understanding is it was set up this way due to something with Mr. Zick's schedule, but for my client's schedule, she'd be willing certainly to do that, and it would make more sense to do it that way versus alternating every single day.
All right, Mr. McFarland?
Did you hear what the judge asked?
Yes, ma'am. Now, yes, I would like, if I could get to choose, I would take Wednesday and Thursday for my 2 days.
Is that all right with you?
Doesn't matter, that's John.
All right, so let's change the parenting time then, so that Erica Allen is going to be exercising time on Mondays and Tuesdays. And from what I have heard today, I do not see any risk of harm in incorporating overnights into those regular parenting times. But I would ask that the caseworker have a family team meeting to talk about that particular transition, to make sure that there's nothing that's going to be needed from the family to organize that, rather than jumping into it immediately. So the order of the court will be that the parenting times will change to specifically mom, Ms. Allen on Monday and Tuesday, father Wednesday, Thursday. That will be the only main change, with the additional exception that your client can do those midweek overnights after an FTM, where that's been discussed thoroughly, so that it's an organized transition. Any questions on that piece?
Okay.
Okay. That could also include her weekend overnights. But I would expect you all to talk about that as well during that FTM, to make sure that that's going to work for the family and for the kids and for the grandparents. All right. That will leave your client with his regularly scheduled hours on Wednesday and Thursday, Mr. McFarland. As it relates to the housing for your client, the last request I heard was for him to have permission to move in with his parents. Is that your position?
Yes, for,
It is, Your Honor.
for permanent residencies for reunification, yes, that's my only option, it seems.
So hypothetically, under that arrangement, your parenting time would still be exercised at your parents' home.
Yes, I mean, obviously, I'd like to be able to get in a car and go somewhere with them if I'd like to. I mean, I don't want to have to be chained into my parents' house, but I mean, yeah, for the most part, I mean, yeah. They are very aware of what I do on a daily basis, whether they're my supervisor or my kids or not. I mean, you know, long
I
after.
just want to make sure I understand what you see as a viable plan for you moving forward.
That's for reunification. Yes, if I'm moving with my parents, that means I have my rights to my kids back, and no, I can do what I please with my kids, kind of, and they're not my supervisor, visit supervisor. I mean, as long as they got to supervise my business, I'll keep my studio apartment.
Okay.
I guess maybe I'm not being understood.
I just wanted to make sure I understood what your plan was. Thank you. All right. Ms. Heiss, I welcome your thoughts on the discussion about parenting time visitation, and anything else you'd like to weigh in on.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think that we're now at a 30-day request for a review. I think 45 days is the minimum. Remember that these kids have a history of chronic familial instability, adversity, and harm, and they've experienced complex trauma. I think if we learn anything from Tim, paternal grandfather, it's to not go too fast. We're only 5 months into this case. I do agree with the agency that we should be doing some overnight, but we just started unsupervised with mom last review period, which was January 12th, I think. So I think we need to pump the brakes just a little bit, not to create a challenge, but because these kids are doing well. They're doing well with the transitioning. I saw them more settled at mom's home, even than at grandpa and grandma's home. But I don't think we need to rush this. I would not probably stipulate to reunification, and I don't mean that as any kind of a punishment. I think the children are doing well, but we can't rush them and upset the apple cart. They're not in counseling, but there were a lot of recommendations on the child trauma assessment. They're doing well. They're doing wrestling and gymnastics and all kinds of stuff, and I think that we shouldn't rush. So I like a dad gets his Wednesday, Thursday, mom gets Monday, Tuesday, and then a family team meeting about overnights and weekends. But I don't think that we can move to unsupervised for dad based on his psychological evaluation that we just got in January. And it says that he's a significant risk of harm to the children, and that he is at risk for patterns of abuse and neglect. I don't think that we should ignore that until he's had more progress in services. Thank you.
Thank you. The court finds all interested parties were given notice for purposes of today's review and permanency planning hearing. I do think that the goal of reunification is and remains appropriate for this family. That was supported well by the testimony of the caseworkers as well as the other witnesses that testified. It is a position that's supported by the department as well as the guardian ad litem. So that will remain the goal in this case. I have directed on mom's visitation that it should be Monday and Tuesday rather than Monday and Wednesday, as well as the rest of the parenting time provisions will remain in full force and effect with an FTM on how many and when to incorporate additional overnights into that schedule. As it relates to dad's progress, I want to see him engaged with CMH in those services about substances, and that is reflective and supported by the opinion of our guardian ad litem. It was a point that was well made in his psychological evaluation. He certainly lived it. He knows what that looks like and needs to maintain his recovery. I appreciate the drug tests that I do have that reflect only THC. But we need to see more tests and more trust building exercises, if you will, to show us that you continue to be in recovery. The request for you to be able to move in with your parents at this point, I'm not going to authorize that. What we need to see is continued stabilization of this family, and to have Mr. Zick in the household where the children are living in such close proximity to it's just so reminiscent of what the family arrangement was at the outset of this case, that I think that it would create a risk of backsliding in this case. So I'm going to ask Mr. Zick to continue to reside outside the household of his parents until he's been able to really establish a good period of sobriety, a demonstrable period of sobriety. And so that Ms. Allen can continue to demonstrate her commitment to her mental health treatment and to follow up on a couple of those recommendations in the psychological evaluation, and to show us that she's been able to maintain that stability for herself and her children for a significant period of time, which is also supported by the psychological recommendation, the history of the family, and the observations of our witnesses. So that will be the guidance for the arrangement on visitation moving forward. The children will remain placed with the relative caregivers for all those same reasons. I want to see progress in the areas identified by the caseworker and identified in my findings as far as Mr. Zick goes, and continued progress by Ms. Allen to show us that we have a stabilized permanent family, especially in light of some of the things that Ms. Heiss highlighted about what the children have been through, which is that chronic instability and some of those other pieces. I'm going to be looking for the department to circle back on those CTAC recommendations to make sure that all of those recommendations have been followed up on. That those CTAC recommendations have been sent to the children's counselors so that they can understand fully the context of the challenges that these children are facing. And I would ask to consider a referral as well, looking at the transitions that the children are going to be looking at moving forward, which is great news in some ways, but all stress is stress. So it'd be great to have some additional supports for them in place moving forward. And for now, they are in the safest and least restrictive circumstances, well supported by their grandparents as they have been, sounds like, for their lives, which is great. All right, our next review is going to be May 28th at 10 a.m. Unless do we need to do something for your work schedule wise after 3? Is that okay? All right, so we'll do Tuesday at 10 a.m. on the 28th of May. My guess will be that the pretrial and the custody will get bumped again in order to evaluate the stability of the situation that's being arranged in this case, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it on the 2nd of April. Unless there's any questions, that's all for today.
Thank you.
You're welcome.